All right. First of all, thank you for having us here today. Our presentation, The Junior Developer's Guide to Legacy Systems, is about what we've learned so far by inheriting a 30-year-old system from two seasoned experts on the brink of retirement. And it's not just about the stories of system inheritance that we will be sharing. We will also be providing insights into the unique dynamics of collaborating with those approaching retirement. Because when we talk about seniors, we actually mean retirees, those who've been through the battles, victories, and challenges that we are now facing. Are you ready to join us on this journey? Great. I am Kristoffer Jacobsen, and my colleague here is Lars-Erik Bjørk, and Geir Knudsen and Johan Svartdal.
There we go.
There we go.
Finally. Yeah.
All right. Husbanken, also known as the Norwegian State Housing Bank, is the key agency implementing Norway's social housing policy nationally. We collaborate with municipalities offering various forms of support, such as start loans, housing allowances, and grants to help individuals secure and maintain their own homes. Our main goal is to ensure everyone has access to safe and adequate housing, aligning with the government's vision of a society where no one is left homeless and everyone can own or retain a home. Yes, and a big number, 19,232,168,352 euros. That is the total value of our active loans and grants currently in our Natural and Adabas system. Our system consists of two parts. One part is our case management system, and the other is our loan and grant management system. Both systems have about 100 users internally in Husbanken and contains currently about 36,000 loans and grants, active loans and grants. We are a young team, having only existed for just over a year. When the team was first formed, it consisted of two senior developers who had been involved from the beginning in creating and building the system back in the early 90s. Shortly after the team was established, the seniors retired, leaving only a few months of overlap for knowledge transfer in a complex system with a few million lines of code. Today, the team consists of us, the juniors, and luckily for us, some rehired part-time senior members.
So, for many years, these senior developers at our team received all sorts of tricky questions and issues related to our system. That you get a lot of emails directly from different users, from different departments within the organization that they had to handle on the fly. But these interactions were often almost invisible for the rest of the organization, as they, as they unfortunately wasn't large enough to enter the task management system. So as these seniors sailed off into the retirement sunset, we stood there, flooded with emails, pouring into our inboxes, wondering where to even start. And the seniors would probably breeze through this with just a few minutes, but we had to do some investigation. So as we were diving into the deep, trying to understand these domain-heavy emails of topics such as interest compensation, we were wondering what lines of codes we should change, where to even change those lines of code, and also questions about the domain, like what even is interest compensation. So at a time when our plates were already overflowing, this was the last thing we needed. Our backlog grew, and the number of tasks we were dealing with simultaneously skyrocketed. And instead of spending our time improving our Natural and Adabas skills or enhancing the system, we were stuck in a never-ending cycle of juggling urgent tasks, trying to keep our heads above the water while it felt like we were sinking. And we realized we had to pull ourselves out of this situation. We needed to free up some capacity so that we could start building our life raft.
Yeah, and you can't really manage what you can't see. So we started visualizing all the work, even all the small tasks. And we did the work demand analysis and found out that we had really 4 different kinds of work. We had the unplanned work and the administrative work, the development work, and the improvement work. But we also realized that we spent all our time on unplanned and administrative work, and development was taking much longer than the rest of the organization wanted it to, and improvements were really not happening at all. And while it's not intuitive, lean and Q theory tells us that constantly working at 100% capacity is really not the most effective way to work at all. And in fact, the sweet spot where the tasks will flow through our board the quickest is when having 80% capacity and taking the 20% remaining and joining other team members when they need help. So by setting our work in progress limit at 80%, we also managed to start forcing the rest of the organization to really prioritize their work and making sure that our time is spent on the most valuable things.
And there is a problem that we've really been struggling with, and that is that we don't feel safe when making changes to the code. We have 3 environments: development, quality assurance, and production. And unfortunately, they are not equal. And that is because, this is a bit shaming, but our environments are not backed by any version control. This is like when you normally go like, no. But yeah, and there's also been a lot of different development processes that have been employed throughout the years. So our environments have diverged quite drastically. And we first experienced this when we were asked to make some changes to a program that generates a financial report. And we just did a few lines of code changes and didn't really think that much of it. But a little while later, we received an email that seemed quite critical. 70,000 invoice claims were not included in the report that had always been there. And we were really wondering, how is this even possible? Because the lines of codes that we had changed had nothing to do with which were included in the report or not. But as we started investigating this, we found that when we did the changes to the development environment, which is the correct way of doing it, then promoting it to quality assurance and to production, due to the lack of version control, there was some code in production that only existed in production. So unfortunately, it was overwritten, and we had to somehow try and recover it and rewrite the code that we no longer had. And this had us question everything. And to make matters even worse, after spending a lot of time trying to replicate the code that we originally had, we found that no one really uses this report anymore. So we didn't really need to spend any time doing it.
And to remedy this situation, we have always started to ask the following question. Who uses this functionality, and is it even still needed? Because there's no better example of waste than spending time on something that no one uses. And to feel safe when making changes, we have to do some more measures. So we have started modernizing our technical platform. It's been a few years. The development process and the developer experience. So with excellent help from Software AG, sitting here in the room, actually. We are upgrading currently to the latest versions of all our products. And to ensure a shared single source of truth, which is really important, as you said earlier today. We are also currently working on version controlling our code. And in this work, we are experiencing all kinds of surprises, where modules have not been compiled or cataloged for the last 15 years. And the current source is clearly not what the generated module is based on, as it does no longer catalog. So if anyone knows how to decompile stuff, then talk to me later. So to prevent the environments from diverging in the future, we will also create a CI/CD pipeline. And our goal is to have identical environments, of course, where the same code is running, backed by version control, automatically deployed by a pipeline, hopefully with some automated testing, which is also lacking. And furthermore, by starting to automate as many jobs as possible, we are reducing the chance of human error.
So today, we have very little cognitive capacity left for value creation. And we just simply spend too much time dealing with the system that we have. We were asked a little while ago to expand a list of housing groups, and we just expected a little list size adjustment. But as we started working on the task, we discovered a lot of interconnected maps and programs and copy codes and local data areas and so on. And when you make changes to one of them, you often have to make changes to some other, and when you stow some of them, you often have to stow another, and it's just a complete mess in our environment. And as Lars-Erik mentioned, this is a problem, because if we have to stow a program that we haven't made any changes to, really, then there is the problem that 400 of our natural objects won't compile anymore or are non-catalogable. So this really necessitated careful comparison to hinder any unexpected side effects. But it also had a positive effect, because this helped us identify and tackle our largest capacity thieves, which Lars-Erik will go through now.
Yeah, so the first capacity thief is remembering all the manual steps you need for development and deployment to make sure you're not doing anything wrong. And we are expecting that our efforts on streamlining the environments and building a CI/CD pipeline will remove the need to remember, hopefully, a lot of these steps. And we also believe that consolidating the code in version control will be the most important step we can take to start decomplicating this code. Because, like he said, it exists in production and not in version control. So that means that we have to read through a lot of complex and dead and outdated code, because nothing is ever removed. It is simply just either made unreachable by placing it within a if 1 equals 2. And you have to read through quite a lot of code before you see that this is actually just, it's not relevant at all. And it makes it much harder to understand. And I think that with version control and a pipeline in place, we can finally start deleting stuff for the first time in probably 30 years, I think. Yeah. And furthermore, when it comes to the natural language itself, we are kind of noobs. It's not a very difficult language, but we feel that the examples we have to look at might not always be best practice. And therefore, we are also sharpening our natural skills through peer programming and online training. Yeah. And lastly, due to the complexity of the code base, it's really hard to extract any valuable knowledge about the Husbanken domain from the source code itself. So to counter this issue, we have extended our team to include domain experts, and thereby increasing our knowledge. And we are also reducing the number of handoffs the team has to do, and thus increasing the flow. And we're also continuously reflecting how our measurements actually have, what kind of effect they have on our capacity thieves. But we, like you said, we need to start actually spending more time on creating value instead of just surviving the system.
So we have learned a lot by working alone, and we have also learned a lot by working alongside people with more experience than ourselves. We have learned that we bring different qualities to the table, and that synergies and friction occurs when different eras intersect. And we have been very lucky to welcome back our senior developers from retirement, and that we have them available a few hours a week, because this is really invaluable to us. But we can't just let them loose on the backlog either, because we think that is not a very good long-term solution, although it's quite tempting to do so. And a lot of people within the organization will probably like us to do so as well, because they're waiting for us to complete some tasks. But instead, we value knowledge sharing, like the pair programming you mentioned, but also mentoring each other. And this is really a two-way street, because as they bring their valuable insights to us, we also provide unique viewpoints and from modern theories and technologies, as well as fresh perspectives, while they bring their extensive experience. And this may be a bit unfamiliar to those retired, but for us, it's second nature. Next slide. We have also learned that our generation tends to have a bit more holistic approach. This probably stems from the DevOps way of thinking, because we don't want to just understand the code, but we want to be responsible for the whole entire system and the environments and the setup as well. And this curiosity has helped us understand how the different pieces of the system fits together. And this information or this knowledge has been a bit lost throughout the years in our organization, but returning it feels really good. And throughout the process, we also write a lot of documentation about things like how the system works, so that we can distribute this learning, not just to other team members, but also the ones coming behind us.
Yeah, and as most of us young junior developers, we have a long career in front of us, and we really don't want to get stuck on one single technology. We want to expand our knowledge, learn new technologies that complement, especially for us, that complement Natural and Adabas world. However, we can't do this alone. We need the organization behind us. So we hope that by allowing us to bring other technologies, such as web technology, shell scripting, and other language, in addition to our new ways of working, like DevOps, Agile, and Lean methodologies, we think that we can bring a broader and more efficient toolbox to the table. So we are therefore very excited to see if this will spark any interest in learning something new, or if this is only an obstacle for the retired seniors. And it's also important to remember that the job market for a natural developer in Norway ain't big. It's quite small. And the possibility with working with other technologies give us maybe an edge, the edge that we need to choose the right tool for the right job. So having Natural as one of our tool in our toolbox give us a new, unique experience, and we will therefore be able to see challenge from a new way. And this will also give a new meaning of the term full stack developer. So if there are three takeaways we hope that you have, or you should go with from this presentation, it will be that first, that onboard juniors early. Just remember that learning a new system takes time, and just remember learning from pair programming, it's priceless. It's just priceless. It's be able to ask questions, learning the domain is quite important. The second one is prioritize continuous improvement. And what I mean with that is don't let your system decay with the ever-interesting entropy. Pay down your technical debt before it grows too big. And last one, document everything. There will be a time that, or maybe a time that no one of the original team members are present. So be prepared. And before we go over to the question, I will just say thank you to Kristoffer Jacobsen that having us here today.
Yeah.
We thank you, because this was well worth the wait. I apologize to everyone about the technical difficulties, but this was a great presentation and wonderful insights.
It's less problem than we have every day with the system anyway, so it's okay.
Very good. Thank you. Do we have any questions for our excellent young crew here? Yes, we do.
So more of a comment than a question. I think you guys got nothing to worry about. You're going to have enough work until you retire. And the other thing you asked about was I have experience with a product that it wasn't actually a product, it was called Resource. It actually comes out of Australia that took object code and could resource it into natural source code. But that's that's something in the past, and maybe Thorsten from Australia could tell us a little bit more if that still exists, and maybe it could be useful to you.
So at least it exists something. That's reassuring.
Any questions? This is a great group to get some great insights from.
Yeah, how do you guys deal with management wanting the work that you've got in the backlog at a deadline when you're still learning?
I think you're the most fit to answer this question.
Yeah, actually I think it was quite hard to get management to understand that for some time. But after we introduced the VIP limits, actually trying to narrow down how much work we do at the same time, and also explaining why we're doing it like that, then they can actually see that we don't have to juggle that many tasks, and that this lowers the overhead and makes things flow through faster. And also they can see that we can start making improvements with the time that we free up. But it's difficult because it's always a feature, and always hunting for features, I think. Yeah.
Do you have to deal with that yourself, like speaking to the managers? Or can you have somebody more senior that you can?
We have an excellent team leader sitting right behind you, that's taking most of the heat on our behalf. But also I think that close management is aware of the situation, so they're trying to do what they can to back us up. And that's also why we are able to do the kind of improvements that we're trying to do right now. It's nice. Because they see that this isn't going away anytime soon. We need to actually start improving these systems.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
And since we also document everything, I think we have written down like how much we've been task switching between different tasks, and then finding out someone doesn't really need that task to be solved anyway, and all of these kinds of things. So we actually made a spreadsheet where we noted down all the different tasks we've been working at, categorizing them, so that we can have something to show the leadership in our organization.
Yeah. I think also they didn't understand how much work it was for us to do one simple thing that the seniors done in 5 minutes, but we took a couple of hours because you just have to trace it back and forward
or days.
And it's those 8 character long file names. I'm not sure if I'm too fond of those.
Yes, thank you guys. Great presentation. I've been looking forward to it all day. Just a super quick question, because working at a government agency, we're in a very similar situation as you all are. Probably even to about the same numbers as far as staffing. Now, a challenge I often find, and this goes a tiny bit out of Software AG's domain, but not entirely, is maintaining your current skill sets, and I hate to use the word current, but for example, working with React design, responsive design and those sorts of things. Do you find that it's able to be prioritized with the backlog that you guys are dealing with?
We've actually, or I was told by my leader that I really have to fight for this time, because there will be enough to do at all times. But by, for example, scheduling it into our calendar, like this 4 hours I will work on maintaining what I already know, is really, really important, I think.
Yeah, and also this system doesn't live in isolation, so there is other systems around it that will integrate with it. And there's a value stream that kind of crosses that boundary, so you just have to make sure that you take initiative to be a little bit on both sides, I think. Yeah, and take the initiative and don't just wait for it to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think also a really, really important thing is to get the organization to understand that they need to prioritize. They need to define what is important, because not everything can be like 100% important. So we need to, okay, what will be 99% important, and so on. And yeah, so they really are fighting for the organization to kind of, and they do that. So they understand and they give time for other knowledge.
But it's also probably, to a certain extent, it can become frustrating.
Yeah, but the organization has to understand the problem and the complexity and the domain problems, and yeah, so because it's a big system and the domain is difficult and it's kind of Norwegian, a lot of the issues.
I'm sorry, just one more comment on that. Okay, and I apologize. I know you guys are tired of hearing me talk. But one thing, if I can just ask anyone that's in like a leadership position or engineering or any sort of management position that requests changes to the software, I say you guys, please forgive that term, have to understand that from a 20 to 35-year-old or 45-year-old perspective, we have to learn a 30-plus-year-old system and understand the business rules. And like they alluded to, oftentimes things were done for a certain reason, but the person that did it's not there anymore, and they don't have documentation. So anyway, that's just, I wanted to follow up on what Marte said.
Yeah.
You must be proud of this team. Yeah. How about a great round of applause for this group? Thank you so much. Any more questions?
Oh.
Yes, we do. Oh, you can't go away yet. This is excellent.
Only a short remark. Don't be too ashamed of your system. You just imagine that you inherited it from the old Vikings.
We are not
I
ashamed.
think we
are
did
proud
actually
of the
inherit
system.
it from old Vikings.
As you said, we are not ashamed of our system. We are proud of our system. It's a good system.
Yeah, and it's also remembering that every choice that was made at the time where it made sense, and it just hasn't been updated since that time. Yeah.
The truth about modernization. Thank you, gentlemen. This was wonderful. Appreciate it.